Well, this is Senator Malcolm Roberts in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, doing the weekly wrap-up again. It'll be fairly brief today because I've got quite a few things on. I've got a busy schedule. So let's start. The big news. A wonderful treatment that's received many awards around the world and has saved millions of lives is now safe again. Yes, Iver. I won't say its full name because, it'll happen. It will get tossed off. So Iver is safe again. The Therapeutic Goods Administration, that shill of Big Pharma and the World Health Organization, the Therapeutic Goods Administration in Australia, has removed the restrictions on prescribing Iver. So, before COVID, Iver was safe. During COVID, it wasn't safe. And now, it's safe again. What's changed in the science? I'll tell you, bloody nothing. Absolutely nothing. What's happening is bureaucrats are covering their backsides. The supposed experts at the Therapeutic Goods Administration are just big pharma shills. In my view, they're guilty of misfeasance, and I'll tell you why in a minute. The TGA has no interest in Australia's health, only serving the pharma corporate overlords. And speaking of that, we had an inquiry. I flew down to Canberra during the week, along with Pauline, and Senator Canavan and Senator Rennick, and all Queenslanders. Isn't that amazing? We can't leave out Russell Broadbent, though. He wasn't at the inquiry, but he is a Victorian Member of Parliament, and also Alex Antic in South Australia, and also Senator Ralph Babet in the Senate from Victoria. So we have got other people, but all four, and majority of people who have woken up and defending human rights in this country are from Queensland. Joe's influence continues, I guess. So what we had was an inquiry into preventing discrimination based on an injection status. They're not vaccines, they're injections. They're not vaccines, they're experimental, unproven, untested, highly risky, gene-based therapy treatments. It was an inquiry held by the Education and Employment Legislation Committee, and we were sitting as participating members of that committee. The inquiry was into two things, both to do with COVID-19. First of all, Pauline Hanson's bill that I introduced, vaccination status on COVID-19 vaccinations, Prevention of Discrimination Bill, 2022. And the second bill, put up by Senator Canavan, Senator Antic, and Senator Rennick, is the Fair Work Amendment prohibiting COVID-19 vaccine discrimination bill of 2023. So both were considered together. Pfizer was invited. Pfizer declined. We on the committee will be chasing them. Moderna was invited. Moderna declined. We will be doing the same with Moderna, chasing them. We heard a harrowing story from Ms. Deborah Hamilton, who was a mother of Natalie Hamilton, who died from the Pfizer and Moderna injections. How did she die from both? Well, she had 2 Pfizer shots, and then the third shot, a booster, was from Moderna. The mother, Deborah, did a wonderful job. I don't know how she kept it together. It was truly moving. The chair, I've got to thank the chair, Senator Tony Sheldon from New South Wales. He just let her talk, and it was wonderful. And we posted that on my website, and we can access to it. She spoke very well, and she said that neither she nor Natalie would have taken that shot from Moderna if they'd known the truth. They relied on the Australian Technical Advisory Group for I can't remember what the I stands for. Anyway, the people who oversee vaccines, and they said, go ahead and get your third shot. Go ahead, it's fine, when it wasn't. Natalie had a condition that is well known, and they said, go ahead and do it anyway. And Natalie died. A slow, painful death, and then a rush death. And Natalie's mother was not allowed to join her for a significant portion of that time. And what we saw was many, many deaths from these injections are being hidden. Natalie's mother, Deborah, told us that. She knows of many others. She's in touch with them. She also told about the inhuman medical treatment in Victoria. It's an absolutely disgraceful situation. The medical system is so corrupt now, so incapacitated, that it's killing people. Health systems are broken. We know the same in Queensland. Speaking of relying on the ATAGI and the TGA, we interviewed 4 other groups. The New South Wales Civil Liberties Council was there. New South Wales Council for Civil Liberties, was there. And what a mess. The president of the council could not even tell me for sure how many injections he'd had. He was flippant. He was disrespectful, in my opinion. And it goes back to he relies on one authority, the TGA. And then later on he said, and the government. And I said, make up your mind. What is it, government or TGA or what? And he said, basically the TGA. So that's what we've seen so many other entities, so many agencies pushing mandates, which is against fundamental human rights. They all rely upon the TGA. And we won't give up till we can't. Then we heard from the Department of Employment and Workplace Relations, who didn't really have a clue what was going on, didn't understand the mandates around the country, didn't understand the impact on the the aged care system. The aged care system has got around, I can't remember the exact details, but it's around about 430,000 positions. 10% are unfilled. They're looking for 10% more workers. Crisis and aged care. due to mandated injections, because workers are saying, to hell with your mandated injections, I'm not coming in anymore. We've had people heartbroken because they really they formed a very good relationship, very strong, loving, caring relationship with residents in aged care facilities, but they weren't going to take the shot and they resigned instead. And they were crying with us. Our switchboard in our office, we had to shut it down at one time because our staff were just too distraught with the stories being told. That was a couple of years ago. We listened to the Fair Work Commission and the Fair Work Ombudsman. I managed to get out of the Fair Work Commission that one of their primary roles is to protect workers, protect small business employers, and protect all employers, but primarily to protect workers. Had to drag that out of them. You know, it's really significant because Dr. Naomi Wolf, she's not a doctor, but she's seen the court-ordered dump of Pfizer documents. And she very quickly assembled 3,500 experts in their fields, medical, science, statistics, and other fields, and put them together to work on the Pfizer documents. A huge task. And that woman has really set the world on fire with what's going on there. So we introduced it briefly last week. I was on a podcast which is getting huge views for Hoodie, along with Alex Antic and Naomi Wolf. So plug in there if you want to get the details. But 3,500 experts in their fields are tearing into the Pfizer documents, and it is startling what Pfizer knew. And here we are in this country. The TGA did no testing of these injections. They relied upon the Food and Drug Administration in America. The Food and Drug Administration in America said they didn't do the testing either. They relied upon Pfizer documents. So now we're starting to see it come out. But it was an eye-opening experience talking with Ms. Deborah Hamilton and the mother of Millie who passed away. Then where does it end? The defence. Okay. I had a brief meeting with actually a briefing from the Defence Industry Minister last Friday late in the afternoon, about their recently released strategic review, all publicly available information. And I want to commend them for doing the review. Things are changing. We understand that. And it's very important to have a review. And significant changes are coming out of that review. But you know what they're talking about? How they're going to be using, the Army is going to be using in the remote north, electric vehicles instead of diesel vehicles. Yep, the Chief of the Defence Force's great plan to protect Australia in the remote reaches of the far north, where we can struggle to get fuel, let alone a PowerPoint, is electric vehicles. So I asked the Defence Industry Minister, Pat Conroy, how far they can get through the outback on an extension cable to the southern power stations. And his response was to say, well, first of all, let's just say that he talked about coming up with a new concept, nothing reality yet, a concept on how they can charge electric batteries more quickly using solar. These people are going to rely on solar to charge electric vehicles in northern Queensland, northern Western Australia. This is insane. It is insane. You know, our diggers are amazing. They're fantastic. They're amongst the world's best fighters and soldiers. It's the bloody generals, the chiefs, and the defence ministers that are letting them down with this woke nonsense. We've got a lot of work to do here, starting with clearing out the obvious incompetence and higher leadership of the Defence Force. Security is fundamental. Security comes from having industry that can make ammunition. We can't. Weapons can make weapons. We can't. Well, we make some weapons. We make, and security comes from having an industry that has a thriving economy. We're not getting it. The key to that is cheap energy. And we are deliberately wrecking our electricity sector. We've gone from the cheapest electricity in the world to amongst the most expensive. But here's something I've been talking about for many years now. Our country was once independent for almost everything. We made it here. Now we are dependent. And that was a deliberate strategy from the United Nations, and lately the World Economic Forum has joined them in this strategy. But it was possible only because our dopey bastards in Canberra fell for it. They went from independence to interdependence. Now that sounds lovely, fluffy, wonderful stuff, woke stuff. Think about it. If I'm interdependent with someone, then I depend for some things on them. They depend for some things on me. Sounds wonderful. Did you hear the word I used? I depend for some things on them. You can't do that between international borders, especially when we're a huge island completely surrounded by sea. A simple blockade guts us. And that's one of the things that triggered, the two things that triggered the Defence Forces review, and that is that we can see China building. Hello? China's been building for years. And secondly, that they can now see that we have to protect our sovereignty. That's what Pauline has been saying since 1996. That's what I've been saying since before I got into the Senate. We have ceded our sovereignty because of the grubs in Canberra. So the review was needed, but what we've got now is all the issues that were raised are due to governments asleep and ceding sovereignty to the globalist predators. And I've used that word a lot, the globalist predators, because I'm trying to wake people up. I know many people on our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter are with us, and thank you so much for your encouraging comments. People are waking to the United Nations World Economic Forum deceit that is making globalist billionaires richer, and they're predators on the taxpayers of the Western nations. It's not just Australia. So I put out a post about this morning. What are the other topics that they're using deceitfully to manipulate more money to themselves and more control over the people? Well, COVID. Climate. I put out a post this morning, so I'll read from that. Climate. Energy. These are fundamental things to do with health. Food. Lab-grown meat. Farming. Destroying farming. The Dutch farmers are being tossed off their land. Health is not, there's no such thing. The health systems, the sickness systems, work for Big Pharma. Child mutilation, gender bending, young kids. Child indoctrination, not education. Child sexuality. Child predation. Predators trying to groom children for pedophilia. Now the UN is trying to wrap pedophilia in a lovely term. Instead of calling them pedophiles, they're calling them minor attracted. It is still hideous. Minor attracted. United Nations and World Economic Forum destroying family, destroying the tax system in this country to favour global multinationals, all to control people and transfer wealth. So these are the things that are destroying our country. And that's why I will keep trying to wake people up. Thank you so much for the encouraging comments to keep doing it. We will. But we've got to put in place solutions, and they're in our policies, especially our energy policies. Get rid of all the subsidies that are feeding these predatory billionaires. Crime here in Queensland, well, youth crime is at a horrific level. We have juvenile offenders committing crimes and being let out to commit crimes, again, dozens and dozens of times. They act like they're beyond reproach, because currently they are beyond reproach. It's often ending in tragedy. We saw this week in Maryborough, allegedly a 13-year-old driving a stolen car, crashing and killing 3 innocent people. What was Premier Palaszczuk's response? Quote, "I'm limited to what I can say." And, quote again, "These are very, very complex issues. They're fundamentally simple, Premier." And what did Deputy Premier Stephen Miles have to say? Quote, "No one has been able to stamp out youth crime." End of quote. As if we should just bloody well accept it. This is not what we need for leadership. We need people who care about the community and care about individuals, and especially children. We need people to stand up to the United Nations that is pushing these policies, destroying children and families. On every town community page, we're seeing the stories like this every week. another house broken into in Rocky, another car stolen in Townsville, another person bashed in Logan. It has to stop, and Labor needs to start right now. I'm going to finish with some good news, very good news. I attended the opening yesterday of the Burton coal mine, actually reopening, and it's something we should be celebrating. Burton coal mine is producing coking coal or metallurgical coal or steel-making coal, and it's producing thermal coal, power station coal, electricity generation coal. So it produces both. The Greenies and Labor might want to stop all that coal, but very soon we're going to need it again to keep the lights on. We'll have more of a session on the difficulties we're facing with what Liberal, Labor, Nationals and Greens are doing to our power sector and have been doing since 1996. But we'll do that with more time. I've got to end up now for the next engagement. It is as simple as the fact that we have taken for granted, people my age have taken for granted, and people even in their 40s and even in their 30s, taking for granted the fact that we can walk home into a dark house at the end of the day after a long day's work and flick a switch and everything works. That is going to stop happening pretty soon. We need more coal mines. We need more coal-fired power stations. One Nation's policy is to build a coal-fired power station in Collinsville. And also there's another primary opportunity at Kogan Creek as well, where we've currently got, I think, Australia's biggest turbine, 750 megawatt. We need to make electricity as cheaply as possible for all Australians. Energy primacy is fundamental. Energy is primary to a manufacturing sector. Energy is primary to standard of living. I'll say it again. I'll keep saying it. The cost of electricity determines our productivity. We had been for 150 years in the Industrial Revolution, we had been on a relentless, ever-decreasing real cost of electricity. As the price of electricity decreased and the price of fuel decreased, petrol and diesel, we saw higher productivity, which sees higher prosperity, higher wealth for everyone. So what we need to do is get back to that, instead of artificially raising the prices of electricity. We've gone from the cheapest in the world to amongst the most expensive. Now you have 22 minutes already, and that's some of the biggest stories. So thank you very much for listening in. Hope you can join me next week for a wrap-up of the budget. And I'll be on Sky News on their budget panel on Tuesday night. I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for tuning in. Got to go. See you next time.